So they need to have that clear vision of what problem they're solving and find those customers that want the solution to that problem. Hi, my name is Elina Halatcheva. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here. I'm a co-founding general partner of BrightCap, which is a tech-focused VC fund that invests in technology companies globally. So my transition was actually gradual. After the 2 years I spent at Citigroup, I moved to another investment bank, which was a startup in itself. And I was in research covering emerging e-commerce and technology companies. So I was living the life of a startup entrepreneur, but I was also having a peek at the challenges that big public new tech companies were facing at the time. Then I spent a few years in private equity in New York and London and came back to Bulgaria, where I got my hands dirty in actually building a startup from the ground up with a small group of supporters. And I think that was actually the most valuable and intimate experience for me because I had to deal with all aspects of launching and growing a business. And finally, 3 years ago, together with my partners, I launched BrightCap, which admittedly now gives me a much bigger across the board picture in many businesses, many different work cultures. And yes, it's more dynamic, but it's also more interesting and more fulfilling in the end. I think there are 3 key lessons that I can think of. The first one is that the investor's role is not to know everything and provide answers to hard questions, but rather ask those hard questions so that founders can find the answers themselves. The second one is that you need to invest in founders that you trust that they know what they're doing, which somewhat relates to the point above, but also trust that they're direct and honest with you and will always share the true and realistic picture of the business and not hide any challenges now or in the future. And the third one, which is more of a personal kind of lesson, is I just got more respect and empathy towards founders. As you know, it's very easy for investors to be on the demanding side, but they often forget that founders is just as, if not more demanding towards themselves, and that their journey is actually very tough and they live and breathe it every single day. So these are some of the lessons I learned. I'm sure there are more, but those are the key ones. I'm sure there are many of those challenges. I can think of a few. I guess the first one is to decide when to stop perfecting your product and actually go to market. I think a lot of founders want to have a complete version with all functionalities, all capabilities before going to market. But in the tech world, innovation is fast. And if you fall behind by waiting too long, that's a mistake. And of course, it's a balance. You know, you can't go to market with just an idea. The second challenge I can think of is moving from pilot to a paying customer. This is actually the true market validation and finding your product market fit. And a lot of startups we see remain in that phase far too long. Some don't even come out of it. And the third key one, I think, is, of course, expanding and growing your customer base. So for this, you have to pay close attention to your customers and their needs. And I know this sounds like a cliche, but I see it way too often that founders are too rigid in what they believe their product should look like and don't listen to the customer needs and are not open to market feedback. So I think the first area that most people will say, sales and marketing, which is definitely an area where founders face challenges, especially the tech founders that are capable of creating superb products, but often lack the go-to-market strategy, figuring out what channels to use, which people to hire, what expertise they need. We also help a lot of our founders, especially the early ones, with better framing the problem that they're solving so that they have a crystal clear vision of where they want to be, at least in the next 12 or so months, when they typically need to raise another round and show some traction in the meantime. So they need to have that clear vision of what problem they're solving and find those customers that want the solution to that problem. I think I'm not going to say anything new here. I think the main ingredients for global success are a big market, a differentiated and defensible product, and a strong team that has a cohesive culture that can undergo like all hardships that they're going to face, because there will be many of them. And until recently, I think startups from our part of the world that wanted to sell to the US faced the additional kind of skepticism for being foreign. But I think that Atlantic Ocean gap is narrowing with the emergence of many European successes, and that is probably not going to be a challenge anymore. I guess there are more female founders now, as there's generally more equality and men taking some of the burden off the women's shoulders, like childcare and house care. I also think that certain problems can only be solved by women, like those related to women's health, as a clear example. And as innovation is becoming more pervasive, there's naturally a trend in that direction. When I was in research in 2001, I remember only one female founder, Meg Whitman, at eBay. Now they're everywhere. So there's definitely a trend in that direction.